morning, everyone. Welcome back to our next ongoing weekly developer AMAs. My name is Marty, also known as Alcatraz. I'm the lead designer at Raini Studios, working on our flagship title, The Lords of Light. How are we going today, gentlemen?
Pretty good,
Good, thank
Marty.
you.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Pro- yeah, can't complain. Bit cold up here, but yeah, it's pretty good. Should probably do the old intro thing, and then we'll get stuck straight in.
Sounds good. My name is Chris, also known as Artkin. I am one of the co-founders of Rainy Studios.
I'm Drazneba, also known as Ray, is my real name. But
Hey,
I'm a community
Oh, here we
member.
go. We got the Draz docs.
Ray.
Well, partially. At some point, I'll put the camera on, but see how we go. Now I'm a community member, just in here helping the guys just coordinate the questions so they can just focus on the answers. Thanks, guys.
How do you feel after saying your real name, Ray?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I've got nothing to hide personally. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
just it's good. It's good that you guys are fully out and about now, which is fantastic. So no reason for anybody not to be really.
Yeah. Welcome to the
Mm,
club. Good man.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. So we've got a few things we want to sort of announce today. We've actually got a medium that will be going out in a few hours with most of this as well. So I guess think of this as the TLDR version if you can't be bothered reading the medium. Although you should, because we put a lot of effort in trying to make them funny. We put a lot of GIFs in there, a lot of hidden links and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll be going out hopefully later on today. The first, I guess, big update, and I guess we'll touch on this, and Draz, if there's any questions around this, we'll touch on those as well.
Yep.
So the design team has been testing a relatively big patch. We actually got the community involvement in assisting us with that testing over the weekend and in the early part of this week. Which, yeah, we've done a few things. The two most noticeable of those things being that we have basically divided all the numbers in the game by 10. So instead of Elon being a 100-100, it's now a 10-10 as an example. We've also adjusted the player health. So instead of you starting with 420 health, we've dropped the player back to 40 health. So basically the same. Slight reduction in health there, but not a significant amount. But yeah, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of interesting, heated discussion around these changes. But I think generally speaking, the feedback that we've seen has been pretty positive overall. And yeah, obviously, some of the reasoning behind these changes, it really comes down to just trying to make sure that as we go into launch, that we're presenting a product when we expect like an influx of new players, a product that will be as easily digestible and playable for all those new players. So just that change basically just makes a lot of the math a bit easier for people to calculate in their head. And then the change to the player health is just looking at the overall metagame, taking into account some of the future cards that we are planning for, like some of the promo cards, as well as like some of the future sets, and just looking at that as an opportunity to just do a bit of a slight balance on that and just bring the health down just that little bit, just to try and make some other strategies a bit more viable. But yeah, definitely a big thank you to all the community members that helped us out with that and played a lot of games over the last several days. It's been, yeah, really interesting being able to wake up every morning to not only to some very lively discussions on Telegram and Discord, but also being able to sit back and look through the logs and look at all of the games that are being played, look at the match histories and see how those changes are actually impacting some of the games. Chris, anything else you wanted to touch on for that?
I think that mostly covers it. I guess it's always interesting when you push one of these test patches out just to see the community response. So we always value the feedback, but in this instance, we were surprised to see most of the discussion revolved around the hero HP reduction rather than the divide by 10. We were kind of thinking people are going to be freaking out about the smaller numbers, which obviously feel a little bit less impactful when you're used to the big numbers on screen. But yeah, people mostly seem to be kind of understanding the rationale behind that change. As Marty said, it's the digestibility for new players. It's also a lot easier for, we're going to be getting some streamers to play the game, as we saw with some for the Avalanche tournament, including Ali Straza. It just makes it a lot easier to talk about audibly if you're saying like a 711 instead of a 70-110 or something like that. It's just a lot more efficient. And if we're not using that last digit, if it's always a 0, then it makes sense to just scrap it. Interestingly, the reason we kept it in the first place, and we did do the bigger numbers, is because we wanted the design space left open so that we could do numbers that weren't multiples of 10. So, maybe we did like a poison effect that did 2 a turn and ramped up, or like a 5 instead of a 10 or something like that. But when we saw the metagame and analyzed it, we think the game is pretty detailed in terms of the level of depth already. It's already got a lot of complexity at the top end with the metagame to be played at a competitive level. And the last thing we want is to have too big a barrier to entry for new players. We really want as many players as possible to give the game a try, have a good first experience, and then want to keep coming back and playing every day. That's going to be the best outcome for everyone. So just for a lot of reasons, it made sense to snip the last digit, since we decided we weren't going to be using it in the design space. That's all I'd add there. And then just again, when we do these test builds, the purpose of them is just to get that feedback and work out what we want to push to the live build. It's kind of like a bit of a safer way for us to get more feedback than we're capable of getting just from internal testing, from the broader community. One of the benefits of having a highly engaged Web3 community, which we want to really leverage into helping make the game as good as possible.
You definitely got plenty of feedback there. I think when you initially opened up the that Telegram channel, but didn't say anything about it, you just left the people to go talking for a long while before you, I think, elaborated on why the change in the smaller numbers, benefits and things like that. But it was interesting to see people just get in there and just give their opinion. It's pretty strong, I thought. But I think a lot of the hero health was about the fact that they couldn't play some of the larger cards. That the games were ending quicker, which was a thing. Obviously, they were ending a lot quicker than they used to, really, and some of them didn't have a chance to pull some of those larger combos in that you get when you get to the 11 and 12 sort of gem combos.
Yeah, understood. And on the back of that feedback, we made the call to not be as aggressive in the hero HP reduction for the patch we're actually going to be pushing live. And we've already updated it, so now it's 40 instead of 35. So, you're only looking at about a 5% reduction in hero HP. It's not really going to be making a significant difference to the meta. You're still going to be able to do all the combinations you used to be able to. It just should speed up the game ever so slightly, because we do really need to be mindful of the average game length being short enough that like a new player can come in and commit to it, or if they've got a time commitment, they have to go to a meeting or something, that they can actually fit a game in pretty confidently. We can't have the games going for too long or going to exhaustion too often.
With the new players coming in, your matching up of skill sets and things, that's obviously that's pretty accurate, is it? So new players will go against new players. Otherwise, I imagine it's fairly discouraging to come up against a Nemesaur or a Q Pioneer or someone like that, or a Huncho, and just get annihilated in the first couple of games. It might destroy your confidence a bit.
Yeah, there's a bunch of systems that we're building under the hood, that basically will control how the matchmaking queues work for all players. Obviously, taking into account what we call the FTUI, or the first time user experience, is a big part of that. So we're never going to go into huge amounts of detail, because with systems like that, if you tell people exactly how they work, people will try to find ways to abuse it. But yeah, you're on the right track. Like, there'll be systems in place to make sure that new players are paired up against newer players, that where possible, we are matching you up with someone of a similar skill and experience level to what you are at in the game. So there's a few different metrics that we sort of track to sort of work out what we consider your real level to be. It's not just your visible MMR. And then, yeah, we're also looking at some other systems that we're hoping to have in around launch as well that will basically give experienced players who want to play like ranked competitive decks a place to do that without necessarily having them come across like brand new players at the same time. Mostly from the perspective that it's never a fun experience on either side. Um, like new players getting stomped by someone who's played for over a year isn't generally that fun for the new player. And based on experience and what we've seen from other like multiplayer games, if that happens early on in a player's like onboarding flow, they'll generally just churn out straight away. Especially if they're just a free to play player, they've got nothing really sticking them or holding them to the game. So if they have that bad experience, they'll just churn. And it's also not really a fun experience for the more experienced players as well. Like the closest example I can give is I play cricket, and occasionally like my team will get matched up against maybe a new team that's joining the competition like that, where it's just a complete one-sided stomp. And I mean, yeah, cool, you get to hit the ball and stuff like that, but it's not a great experience for the more experienced team either, because you're not being challenged in any way. You're not actually getting the opportunity to show your skill or actually play the game to its full extent. So it's a big part of what we're doing, is looking at ways to support a very diverse range of players through our matchmaking and through the various game modes and such that we're sort of building out.
Yeah, those sort of game modes, I suppose, if someone new comes in, or anybody for that matter, and they start playing some against other players, they think, oh, I'm not, there will be other things for them to do on a solo basis, basically, part of the battle pass or something, quests or other versions of things.
Yeah, we've already got like AI and bot modes sort of built in, so players who want to just practice in that sort of more offline setting can do so. In terms of like battle pass specifically, most of that will be geared towards like online multiplayer games, because then you've also got to keep in mind we're trying to balance out the difference between if we end up with a great solo single player experience, that's great. But you then look at it from the other perspective, where if we might have 10,000 people playing the game at any one time, but if they're all playing in offline like single player modes, there's no one actually online in matchmaking for people who want to play like ranked multiplayer. So we actually end up with a similar problem that you have with having just too low of a player population. If you let the players be spread out in different modes, again, you need to have exponentially more players to support that. So yeah, it's an interesting juggling situation we're in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, using things like the battle pass is a great way to sort of control that in some way. We can sort of, if we set up, say, a certain point in the battle pass to be single player modes, then we expect that players will sort of migrate over to that. But then we can sort of bring them back by having some challenges that are, built specifically around like, ranked multiplayer or other game modes as well. So yeah, there's a lot of little things under the hood that we've got to get right to make sure that we, present a great game, a good, fun, balanced, enjoyable experience. But then that we, show the player the right features at the right time, get them into the right game so they can, have that sort of enjoyment. It's the challenge with building a multiplayer, like a one-on-one multiplayer game, is generally speaking, 50% of the time, or all the time, half of your players aren't having a great experience because they're all losing. So trying to balance that out, you need to basically come up with systems where the joy you get from winning is higher than the disappointment you get from losing. So it's it's an interesting challenge that we have.
And I think you can do a lot of things there, including giving at least some level of progression for losing a game, just for playing, especially if it's a higher ranked opponent or something like that. So it doesn't feel like you've wasted that time. If you've spent half an hour on a really tense match and you've lost in the end, at least like if your experience bar goes up or do something, then you feel like, okay, well, at least I'm working towards something. And then when you win, then you get the better rewards. I've just linked, for anyone who's interested, a website that kind of explains the sweet spot we're looking for, which is kind of like the flow channel. So if you're if something is beyond your level of skill, then you get anxiety. If something is far below your level of skill, you just get bored. So you really need to make sure you're doing everything you can in the game design to get people into that sweet spot between those two levels. Yeah, and that's what all these systems are for.
Excellent. It's obviously, you guys are very experienced, obviously, at gaming in general. Some of the devs and obviously you, Marty, and things like that, have been working in this sort of genre for a long time. So that sort of experience is obviously goes a long way in making this balance all work very well. Fantastic.
Yeah, the joke you always make is like actually making the game is like 10% of what we actually have to do. In some ways, that's the easy part. The actual like building out the correct ways to engage, retain, build an audience, all that sort of stuff. That's in a lot of ways that's the hard part. Because but yeah, like I said, we've done this before, and yeah, we're confident with RTLOL, we've got the right product, and we can hopefully knock it out of the park.
Sweet.
Speaking of getting knocked out of the park, you all want to grab your calendars. And by that, I mean go onto Google Calendar because everyone uses Google Calendar. And make sure you block out the 3rd of June because that will be the date for our Chubbyverse tournament. Like I said, the exact date and time will be in the medium going out later on today, but it's the 3rd of June. I believe it's 5 p.m. Eastern time. It's 7 a.m. Sydney time on the Sunday, so you can work out the math off that. But yeah, it's a similar time to what we normally start for these tournaments. It seems to be the time that we get the best engagement. It's on the weekend, so it's good for everyone there. That will be obviously on this new patch that we're hoping to get out by the end of the week. So the stuff that we're currently testing in that divided by 10 patch should be live on Elixir by the end of the week. So that will be the tournament patch going into the Chubbyverse tournament. The tournament will be best of 3, and it will be capped at 256 players. So, but yeah, it's been a while since we've done a big tournament like this. Obviously, we've had a lot of smaller tournaments hosted by our friends over at Blue Mint, which has been great. If you're not aware of that, please keep an eye on the Blue Mint website. There's been 3 tournaments a week running now for quite a while. With a mixture of prizes for the winners, lucky door prizes, and yeah, we should, Chris. And yeah, we've actually been giving out some rare NFTs as lucky door prizes as well. So players have been earning some crypto exchange. Actually, I got to send out last week's winners for that one as well. But yeah, a lot of prizes up for grabs there, and yeah, just a great chance to play some competitive RTLOL and try out new decks and new ideas. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go, Jess.
No, I was just going to say those smaller tournaments really, I think, are fantastic. Yeah, I mean the prizes are good. I mean they're not really the why you're there. I suppose it's just practicing against real life players, and some of those guys are hardened foes now. They're really quite good at the game, and when you come up against them, it's just a good experience, I suppose. And to keep that sort of competitive thing rolling has been a great a boost, I think, for everybody playing them. I get in them when I can.
Huge shout out to Blue Mint for helping us run those tournaments while we can focus on the big official ones and actually developing the game and all the bits and pieces that we need to focus on.
All the prizes and things for the Chubbyverse, they're listed in the medium that's coming?
Yeah, they will be. But we probably, we can definitely announce what one of the big prizes that you'll be playing for. Chris, if you want to take that one.
Sure. So we will be throwing in one of the rarest NFTs in RTLOL. First prize will be a Satoshi Stacker NFT. We have a couple left over from the original 10 way back in, I think, September of 2021. And so, yeah, we've made the call to keep things exciting by putting one of them as first prize. So that's the main thing you'll be fighting for. Chubbyverse have also been generous enough to contribute, I believe, one of their own NFTs and some swag, some clothing. So we'd have to work out some shipping stuff depending on where in the world you live if you win one of them. And then we'll be doing some packs and a bunch of other stuff. But we're going to outline it all in the medium that will be coming very soon.
Very nice. I think I have to get onto Satoshi Stacker himself on Twitter and sort of see if we get some of his followers to get involved in that. That's a fantastic NFT. That one, I love it. Great graphics and super rare,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, the art's awesome, and yeah, it's by far one of the rarest NFTs in our collections. So obviously, we've got like our mythics, things like Chad Rainey and Quantum Rug, which are editions of, I think they're both 200s, both those ones. Or if one of them's 100, but I think they're both 200s.
Quantum Rugs, I think they're
Yeah,
100, aren't they? Both
100,
100.
100 for the mythics, and then
Oh,
yeah,
sorry, yeah, 100's for
Satoshi
mythics and
Stacker is 10.
is
200
10, yeah,
is for the rarest legendaries. Yeah.
legendaries, yeah. So yeah,
Aside
Satoshi
from
Nakamoto is
Satoshi Stacker,
200.
which is 10. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, bit confusing there, but yeah, no, that's yeah, definitely should make for an interesting little prize there. Probably normally I'd say one of the biggest prizes we've ever put up top, but obviously the $10,000 Avalanche tournament probably took the cake there, I think, with that one. But yeah, that should be a fun little tournament coming up there. And yeah, so obviously that will be running on the new patch. Will be out at the end of this week. The other thing, I guess, to keep in mind with that patch is we will be adding in all of the promo cards. They will be live and playable in that patch as well. So that is, make sure I don't miss any. So that's Avalanche, the Blockfather, Crypto Exchange, Campai Pandas, and the Chubby Aliens NFT will all be in and playable for that particular tournament. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any of those cards mix up the meta there a little bit. So you got 2 green cards, 2 blue cards, and a red card in there. So
Uh,
yeah,
and we're also buffing, I believe, for this patch, the 7 Deadly Sins mythic a bit. So stay
yeah,
tuned for the design specifics, but it should be a bit easier to play in this
yeah,
new patch.
yeah. Devs are finalizing at the moment, and Art's got some cool stuff they're doing for that as well. And yeah, a big shout out to our art team being able to pump out seven new pieces of art for the game when they need to. There's a little spoiler as to maybe one of the changes that's happening in that card, but yeah, it'll be good to see that getting a bit more playtime, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So that's the chubby. Yeah. So I've got like a list here. There's a lot of stuff we're dropping in this medium. So we've got the patch coming out at the end of this week. We've got the Chubbyverse tournaments. Um, Chris, did you want to touch on the Arthron drop?
Yeah, sure. So we are confirming with our platform devs now, but it looks like in just about a week at the 30th, 31st of May, depending on what time zone you're in, we're aiming to do the Arthron NFT drop. So this is going to be a drop that is purely available for rainbows and unicorns, as per the old NFT drops that were more art-based that we did in the past. There will be the ability, if you collect a certain number of each of them, to get yourself an infused NFT, which will be usable in the full launch of RTLOL. And yeah, pretty exciting to get this one out there and see who snaps them up. There's likely going to be wallet limits for the first 30 or 60 minutes, and then we'll remove them as the drop progresses. But that is the date we're aiming for, is the 30th or 31st for the Arthron NFT drop. Stay tuned for the medium. Just waiting on final confirmation from our lead smart contract dev to lock that in. Yeah, and then I guess the next one leads into I guess you're the one who's physically going to be doing this one, so I'll let you announce this one, Money.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, so that's yeah, aiming for the 30th of May for Arthron, Chubbyverse 3rd of June. A week later, on the 8th and 9th of June, RTLOL and Raini Studios will be over in Los Angeles for the 3XP convention. So 3XP basically is replacing E3 this year. E3 unfortunately got cancelled. 3XP is going ahead in conjunction with LA Tech Week. So it's going to be pretty much a huge celebration of gaming in Web3. It's being coordinated with our friends over at Community Gaming. And yeah, super excited to be over there. We're going to be on the Avalanche booth at the actual event. So if you're in LA, if you're in, I guess, the area, California, I guess, yeah, definitely stop by, play some RTLOL. Basically, this is going to be the who's who of Web3 gaming, is how they're sort of aiming for this event to be. It's going to be pretty massive. Ali Straza is already confirmed to be there. Hang on, I'm going to check the actual website so I don't like dox anyone. But yeah, there's a bunch of big names that will be there. Oh, it is
Looks
announced.
like
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Ed, who's the head of gaming at Ava Labs, so Avalanche, is going to be there and giving, I believe, one of the keynotes on one of the 2 days. TSM is there. Midnight Society is there. Yeah, it's. I'm trying to think who's not there, basically. But yeah, if you're in any way interested, and I would assume people listening to this are probably interested in Web3 gaming in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, Decrypt, Kate's going to be there. Yeah, it's pretty much just a huge celebration of Web3 gaming.
Yeah, and we should have a similar setup to what we had at GDC. Big shout out to our good friends at Ava Labs for setting that up and showcasing us. I think they are making the right decision in putting RTLOL front and center as one of, if not the best game on the Avalanche blockchain that's coming up. So yeah, it looks like they're going to be dedicating 4 gaming laptops and all of the merch that they've got from GDC. So we have a lot of prime time recognition and a lot of opportunities to showcase the game to new players and reinforce our branding to people in the Web3 scene that we've been, investing in over Dice Vegas, ETH Denver, GDC, Avalanche Summit, and now, yeah, 3XP. Should be a really good opportunity. I believe Marty's going to be doing some video content at the Avalanche booth too, like a 15 to 20-minute recording. So we'll publish that if they don't do it themselves, and you guys can check it out. But it should be really good way to
Depending on the
get
internet connection
RTLOL
there,
in.
we might even just do that week's AMA live
Yeah,
from 3XP.
that'd be fun. Yeah.
If it's really good internet, I'll just do it walking around and because yeah, GDC obviously is a bit more of a, and like Dice are much more like closed events, whereas this is a more like open to the public gaming expo. So yeah, we might just yeah, I'll wander around with my phone or my laptop or something, and we'll see how many
This is
people
the
I can
This
piss
is
off
the
at
start
once.
of your IRL streaming career, Marty. You're gonna go over
Absolutely,
to
I'm
Twitch
just
after this.
yeah, got to get famous for the launch. Like it's yeah. But yeah, no, if you're in the area, yeah, definitely pop by. I'll be there if you ever wanted to beat up on one of the devs in person, then yeah, it's always good fun. Um, Shout out to Garrison, who's undefeated against Chris as well. But yeah, it's that should be a really awesome event for us to be at. Um, and yeah, obviously, being on the expo floor and showing off the game and doing all that stuff leading into our launch is really important for us. There'll be a lot of media there that will be sort of covering the game as we approach our launch on the Epic Game Store. But yeah, we've got a lot of other meetings sort of around that as well. Just working out all the actual logistics and yeah, all the fun stuff as you launch a game.
Are you guys obviously for the launch side of things? Photon's out. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's all sort of coming together. Your battle passes and things like that. You're obviously all testing all that sort of stuff in the background with regard
Yeah,
to tokens
yeah
and
there's a
things like that.
there's a few different versions of the game floating around at the moment. So obviously we've got the live Elixir patch, which is 9.12, I think that one's on. We've got the what internally we call the 420 patch because we're getting rid of the 420. But that will be 0.9.15, I believe that one's going to launch as when that goes live later on this week. But yeah, internally there's a bunch of like 0.10 patches which are testing off out a lot of the launch features. So things like the battle pass, things like the in-game storefront, um, you know, quests, achievements, all those sort of fun things that you expect to have in the game.
Are you going to keep that just in house, or you're thinking of and getting
You've
involved.
you've stolen my thunder, Ray. That's not you've jumped 2 points ahead.
No,
So
I think it was maybe Nemesaur, Q Pioneer. One of those guys was basically offering to help with this sort of thing. Obviously, they're very
Yep.
au fait with the game, so
oh, for sure.
if you
Yep.
need a hand, we're just saying we're here to help if needed.
Yeah, I'll touch on that in 2 points time. But yeah, we're definitely going to be doing a lot of stuff with the community for that as well.
Cool.
But because I'm trying to work through this in chronological order just to try and make it a bit easier for everyone to follow along.
Sorry.
No, that's cool, man. So yeah, that brings us to the 30th of June, final day of June, final day of Q2, and there are 2 things we have scheduled on that day. We'll save the best till last. So, on the 30th of June, the final day of Q2, we're going to drop set 2. So, you can pencil it in. That will be the mint date for set 2. We have been calling that set seasons up until now. We're actually looking at maybe changing the name before it actually goes live, just because we don't want to confuse people with having a bunch like if we launch the game and we have Battle Pass, which has seasons, we have the cards themselves, things like, Year of the Rabbit, which are season cards. We're just a little worried that calling set 2 seasons might be a little bit confusing. So we're actually going back to the drawing board there and redoing some of the art and coming up with a different name for that set. But it is the set that everyone knows. It's the set that everyone has played if you've played the game up to this point, which I hope everyone has. So it obviously has some pretty massive cards for the game in that set. Obviously, Rainbow Lotus is there, Aurora is there, so they're your 2 mythics. There's a lot of. I've got some images here. There's just a lot of key cards in that set. Regulate, Time Travel, Light Elemental, When Lambo, Leprechaun, Cold Storage, Bear Market, Leviathan, Recursive Reality, Crypto Shell, Liquidate, Kitsune. This is a huge set in terms of if you look at the cards that are played in a lot of decks across any not to start this conversation up again, across aggro, control, or combo style decks. So yeah, very, very excited to get this one out there and get this all minted out. Chris, did you want to touch on what we're actually doing for this one around the bundles and how people can get their hands on these cards?
Yeah, absolutely. So I flagged at I think it was last week's AMA, that we've made the call to, I guess, center the set to purpose primarily around rewarding the longtime supporters of Rainy. Those of you who have had the Rainy token for a long time and been staking it, accruing a lot of rainbows and unicorns. And so the majority of packs will be available purely for rainbows and unicorns. We want this to be the way that our community gets a head start on the broader public who are joining us for full launch and haven't come along the development journey with us, by making sure you can get a whole bunch of NFTs without having to spend any money on these ones. So appreciate all the support we've gotten for the Genesis and the 7 Deadly Sins drop. We've definitely been using those funds very well in developing the game to be the best as possible, and shoring up our marketing budget so that we can launch with a big amount of fanfare. But this set 2 is going to be primarily rainbows and unicorns. It will come in a variety of systems. So there will be the raffles and auctions that we've seen from the 7 Deadly Sins drop, but there will also be some packs available purely for purchase with wallet limits, similar to normal art NFT drops and what we did for the Genesis drop. So there should be a lot of different ways for you guys to get a bunch of packs and really shore up your collection as we move towards full launch. The one thing we will be making available for public, just because they were the most popular option, is a number of bundles. So we'll be doing the vast majority of the packs available for rainbows and unicorns. And then if you are interested in getting even more of a head start, there'll be some bundles available for the second edition, just to get a whole bunch of packs for those who have the interest and capability to spend a bit of money to get ahead. That's kind of how we're going to be doing the second edition drop. So we're super excited to get that done and get those cards and packs in your hands.
I can't remember, but in the early days, I know we did bundles for some of the cards back then. So I think they were available with Rainbows Unicorns, plus then you'd also go and pay B&B ETH at the time. Would be any bundles available for Rainbows Unicorns, or just purely in ETH and B&B at that point?
So the intention is to, yeah. So when I say bundles, it's a good question. I'm referring mostly to what we did for 7DS, which is a whole bunch of packs, likely with a guaranteed mythic, just to make sure you're getting some of the rare cards in your collection without having to roll the dice too much. Although in this set, there are a couple of mythics, so you don't know which one you're going to get. But we are likely going to do some promotional stuff. So as we did with 7 Deadly Sins, there was some, auctions or raffles that had like 2 packs, or we may bundle some together there for rainbows and unicorns. We're likely not going to do it for the ones that you can just purchase yourself. Those will just be individual packs with rainbows and unicorns. Just because we've got a broad amount of community, we need to be very mindful of wallet limits and, being fair to everyone, making it affordable, but also, making it so that, a handful of whales don't just eat up all the supply.
Yeah, it's going to be a
And
busy
obviously
day.
back with Genesis as well, the bundles were also there to try and help with gas fees. So for people that
Yes.
wanted to buy like larger, collections, you didn't have to buy 10 individual packs. You just buy the one sort of, I think they were called like Chad bundles back then. Obviously now, thanks to our friends at Avalanche, that's significantly less of an issue. I mean, if you have a look at what it costs to mint something on AVAX, or move cards around, stuff like that, most of the time we're talking like fractions of a cent. So it's a very different Web3 world that we live in now compared to back then.
And that leads us to what we've been talking about a bit. We've been in discussions with Layer Zero. We're actually going to speak to Wormhole tomorrow as well. But the commitment we're making is that the RTLOL cards. Sorry, just had a call. The RTLOL cards will be able to be bridged across all of the chains we have a presence on now, plus many more. So, if you buy them on Avalanche, you want to bridge them to ETH or vice versa, you'll be able to do that. Right now, we don't have that bridge up and running. But yeah, thanks to guys like Layer Zero, we don't have to build it ourselves. We can piggyback off them and focus our resources on just building the best game possible. But you'll be able to bridge your NFTs to a whole bunch of chains, including potentially 20 plus new chains, which should give a lot more accessibility to other community members who maybe have a preferred chain outside of the ones we've got a presence on at the moment. So.
And regardless of those chains that you put your NFTs on, the game will recognize them and utilize them during play?
Yeah. So the systems we're building will scan your wallets you just connect however many wallets you've got, and then it'll scan for the presence of the NFTs and, basically whitelist them for play in the client.
If there's any chains that aren't supported by the client, we'll definitely let the community know. Any ERC20 chain should be fine. I know we've done some testing on I probably can't drop the name of it, but we've done testing on at least one non-ERC20 chain, and that was fine. But yeah, I mean, there's so many blockchains. There will always potentially be an edge case where it's like, hey, we can't read you can own cards and you can have your collection on chain XYZ, whatever it happens to be. No, that's actually the name of a chain. I'm not trying to name a chain there specifically. But yeah, you may need to bridge it back across to have it usable in game. But again,
the main purpose is for the buying and selling on your preferred chain. And then we're going to support as many of the major chains as possible for reading. It's a good point, Marty. We can't commit to being able to read every chain in existence and have that in the client. But yeah, all the main ones you'll be able to, whichever one you prefer to keep your NFT in, and it'll still be usable in game.
Yep. But yeah, it opens up some really interesting possibilities where you may want to trade I don't know, an NBA Top Shot NFT for a Raini or something, and this sort of tech actually allows that to happen very, very easily, which is pretty cool. And again, it really comes back to that whole core concept that we've pushed from day one, where these are your assets, they are player-owned assets, they are not. We will build the systems to let you use them within the game, but it's up to you where you want your assets to live. So yeah, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we walk the walk in that regard.
On that on the drop that's coming, 30th of June, you'll be doing the same sort of thing where you'll have a certain number on ETH, certain number on Binance, certain number on AVAX. Is that how we did it? One other most times we had those available. People jump in on their preferred chain, or just all on AVAX. It doesn't matter.
No. So there's still, yeah. I mean, the intention is still to allow minting on the 3 chains, similar to the 7 Deadly Sins drop. Should note now that we're just making sure the functionality is there for. We've already got it for raffles and auctions because we did it for 7 Deadly Sins, but for traditional drops, just using your rainbows and unicorns that have been bridged to the Rainiverse from whatever chain they were on. You'll be able to purchase them that way and then mint to your preferred chain.
Okay, that's actually good. Actually, having those rainbows, unicorns all in the one spot, and then when you switch between the chains, there they are basically for use, which is great. That works well, I think.
Yep. And then once you've got once we've got the omni-chain integration up and running, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to, for example, like just as a complete hypothetical, use your rainbows and unicorns, mint them to whichever chain has the lowest gas, and then if you then want to sell those NFTs, you can just move them to the chain where you either can get the best price for them, that has the highest trading volume. It really is trying to build it in such a way that we're giving the most utility to our anyone who owns one of the RTLOL assets. And yeah, so yeah, that's set 2. So yeah, oh sorry, made the mistake of going to the gym. It's a terrible thing to do. Don't do it. But yeah, just so set 2, formerly known as Seasons. Name TBA. We'll let you all know what it's called as soon as we can. But yeah, just trying to make sure we have a name that sounds cool but isn't confusing. And yeah, that will be the end of Q2 that gets dropped. I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, just the other thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned there, Draz. I know I mentioned this a little bit in the playtesting channel as well, but I'll reiterate it here while we're chatting to everyone. In terms of community testing and community involvement with what we're building, absolutely, it's a big part of what the community is a big part of why we're here. The community has been invaluable in helping us test the game and get it to where it is now. We're not going to stop doing that because honestly, I'm lazy. And if you all want to do my job for me, that's great. I can just kick back with a beer and yeah, let you all do my job. So
you're the farthest thing from lazy, Marty. Don't get the wrong impression.
I only work like 80 hours. That's pretty lazy for me. Like anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll sort of touch on what our plan is moving forward, like after we actually start to go live. So what we're actually planning on doing is there will actually be 2 different versions of the game accessible to players. Internally, we're calling them production and staging. I'm sure we'll come up with better names than that for making it like most games. What we call staging, most games will call like a public test build or something like that. The idea being that at any time you can play on the live build, which is live. That's where everything will live in terms of leaderboards, ranked modes, your collections, like all the good stuff basically sits live. And that's where, if you're engaging with our, play and earn systems or any sort of, that's the version that 99% of players will be on for 99% of the time. Staging will basically be the next version of the game. So this would be after it's gone through its usual dev and QA passes that we do internally as a studio. and then you'll have basically, we put it up on staging, make it accessible to the whole community. You will most likely either need to use a different account for staging, or we haven't quite got this bit locked down yet in terms of how we're doing it, or it'll be that the staging build isn't actually connected to mainnet, it's connected to testnets on the actual Web3 side of things. So staging basically, you won't get, there'll be no benefit to being high ranked on the leaderboard. There'll be no play and earn rewards. So most of the key reasons why you would choose to play the game will be on live. But the idea is basically it's a sneak peek. If you want to see, and test and play with what the game is going to look like when we roll out the next patch, and in doing so, assist us with finding bugs or, giving us, real user data that we can look at for balancing reasons, that's basically where you can do it. We are looking at ways to reward players who choose to help us out by playing on staging, but we're going to make sure we balance that out where, like, if you're doing it, you're really doing it because you love the game and you want the game to be in the best possible state it can be in when that particular build goes live. But yeah, it wouldn't be a case of like trying to balance it out to make sure that players don't choose just to play on staging all the time and not actually play on live, which you wouldn't really want to anyway, because there will be bugs, there'll be things that we don't get right, there'll be balance things and stuff like that. Again, that's the whole point of having the staging build there. But yeah, it sort of means that we'll be much more transparent about what the next version of the game could look like. Which, yeah, up till now, we've sort of kept that much more internal. And obviously this weekend, you've gotten a bit of a glimpse of what that could look like. We'll make it much easier. You won't have to download it through like Google Drive or stuff like that, obviously. But yeah, we're definitely looking at ways to get the community very involved in testing as we move forward, to make sure that yeah, we are putting out the best possible product to our players. And obviously, as our community grows, and obviously launching on the Epic Game Store is a big part of that plan as to how we're going to grow the community. It becomes even more important to make sure that we do get it right, and that everything that comes out for what the vast majority of public players will see is that sort of refined, polished, balanced product that our team always strives to put out there.
Excellent. Have you got any more? Did you guys get to the second thing that was happening on the 30th? Was that because the first was all the drop, obviously, June the 30th? Was there a second thing, or have we said that?
There was, and I am.
You're holding out on us, Marty.
Not going to
I
announce
mean,
it.
it's already 10 to 11, and that's kind of a big one. So we might keep people waiting for another.
All right.
It needs its own moment in the spotlight.
Okay. Interesting.
If it's the last day of Q2, it really deserves a bigger sort of thing than the last 10 minutes of an AMA. So yeah, we might just.
All right. So we get into the questions, will we?
Yeah, sure. Let's do some questions.
I mean, just while you're on that, I suppose, not that this might be related, but I don't see how it could be. But just down the bottom of the questions there, where is it? Oh, Lord, I've lost it. Someone asking, when can we expect a final release date? As I know you guys are aiming for the end of Q2, but it's getting close. And I imagine if the cards are dropping at the end of Q2, it's pretty hard to release on the same day as the cards.
We are still planning to launch.
Next question.
we are still planning to launch the game by the end of Q2.
Okay. All right.
There are creative solutions that we can get into. Tune in next week and maybe we'll have some more information.
Let's not push that one. That's good. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. We'll start just from the beginning, I suppose, if that's okay. Just a couple from Telegram, from Florian Beluti.
Yep.
What is Jameson doing for the project? Is he still involved? He won't be happy to hear that question, I imagine, but
Jameson,
I'll let Chris take that one.
Yeah, sure. Jameson mostly focuses his work around outreach. So he will he's the person more than anyone else I know who keeps his finger on the pulse with the broader Web3 space, and seems to know almost everyone in the Web3 space. So Marty and I have been doing a lot of calls with other big Web3 projects for a variety of reasons, looking at collaborations, partnerships, bits and pieces there. Jameson is often the one who makes those meetings happen in the first place. He'll reach out to his contacts if he doesn't know them directly, get a link and make an introduction on Telegram so that we can book in a call and get in front of them. Yeah, in addition to that, he has done a bunch of work in analyzing other game studios in the Web3 space and proposing some creative solutions for that can potentially be applied to Rainy, depending on how a few things go. As we've said all along, our commitment is to drive as much value accrual and utility to the Rainy token, to NFT holders, and soon to Photon. So, we're always looking at ways that we can structurally do that. And Jamison has, researched a lot of the competing projects and come back to us with some options there. So that's kind of what Jamison's mostly been doing in Rainy.
Yeah. Yep. I think people just like in the past he was around a lot, but these days I think, like you say, he's more in the back end of things, driving all those partnerships.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
and,
we speak to him almost every day, so he's still doing stuff. He's just maybe not as much front and center in the community Telegram chat.
yeah, which is fine. Obviously, that's not his job, so that's all good. Same Blitty again asking, what is the future for JJ Mindspheres in the project? Since obviously he seems to be focused heavily on Leonardo. Is he still working on Rainy or with Rainy as well?
Yeah, it's a similar situation. So JJ has taken a step back from a lot of the forward community facing stuff, but he's still vital to a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. I guess you could say he is kind of operating as like a CTO or COO nowadays. So he still makes sure that all the accounting and finance is done. He will help us with some of the high level technical decisions, like layer 0 versus wormhole. He'll make some decisions that are directed towards the bigger picture for the project. But you're 100% right. His primary focus has been lately on Leonardo, which, as we've established in previous AMAs, is giving us a lot of fringe benefits. So I mean, a good case point is what Marty was speaking about earlier today. The 7 Deadly Sins rework, including 7 new pieces of art, that is made possible by Leonardo. Like the fact that we have such a close relationship there, we have like a direct line of communication to the developers, the designers. We can get assistance with the prompt. We can get everything we want. Just gives us such an advantage in production of like all the artwork and everything we need for Rainy, that it's really, really helpful from that perspective. But yeah, I'd say both JJ and Jamison, they're more behind the scenes. They're still heavily involved in the Rainy project, but you're not going to likely see them in Telegram much.
Okay, cool. Blitty again, I think you've sort of answered this question really through everything you've said today, but he's just asking, isn't it dangerous to change the game mechanics so invasive now that the game is about to launch? Because we tested for around a year in other mechanics and they were tested and good from his opinion. But I think we've sort of pretty well elaborated on that with regard to
yeah, and I guess the other thing I'd say there is it may feel like a significant change, but none of these changes are really that significant. The divide by 10 doesn't actually change anything about the gameplay at all. It's just like a visual experience, and then how much mental friction the numbers cause and how easy the math is and how it presents to like new players. So that doesn't change the gameplay at all. The starting hero HP, it does impact the gameplay. But I would argue if it's like, reduction by 5% like we're doing now, it's not going to have a meaningful impact in the meta. And we are not trigger happy in pushing a bigger change than that to live without thoroughly testing it and assessing its impact. That's why we did the test build rather than just push it to the live patch and just got all the community feedback. So there aren't any significant changes we're making without thorough testing and feedback at this point.
And keep in mind, like what we've done this weekend of making this sort of testing public facing, this is obviously what we want to do a lot more moving forward. But this sort of testing happens behind the scenes literally every week. We're always like, as you said specifically from the quote in this question is like the game is good. We're not aiming for good. Like we're not aiming for great. We're aiming for absolutely fucking perfect. And yeah, like we've said it many times. Like our team will always try to do everything we can to make the best product we can. Which means like we'll always be testing different things out. Most of which will never see the light of day. I'll be honest, 90% of the ideas I throw out there are absolutely terrible, and should never see the light of day. But if you throw enough ideas out there, you can spot the gems. And yeah, we're constantly testing and constantly looking at anything we can possibly do to make the product better. Like I said, the only difference this time around is we wanted to get more community feedback and involvement in that process. So yeah, please keep in mind there's always this sort of testing going on. We're just being more visible about it this time.
Excellent. Question from Myzen. Will people renting cards be able to earn the same rewards as players that own cards, or will it be reduced to encourage card ownership?
We're going to release the details around this very, very shortly. We're still just finalizing. Actually, I've got some time booked in with Chris literally today to go through some of this stuff specifically. We're trying to come up with a system where basically we're able to reward people who are both what we're referring to internally as active investors and passive investors. So if you just want to own some NFTs and have some rewards for that ownership, you'll be able to do that. If you want to own NFTs and actually play with them and be actively involved in using those cards, there'll be rewards based around that system as well. And the rental system is tied into that. So we're definitely trying to make sure that we're covering our bases in terms of what we see in both other Web 2 and Web 3 games in terms of how the community or investors and speculators like to engage with the various systems that get built.
I think you mentioned, Chris, one of the AMAs that you thought you had a fairly unique system coming up with for the renting. Is that?
Yeah, that's kind of tying into what Marty is referring to there. I mean, another way of speaking about it is, play and earn has been thrown around a lot in the GameFi space, but I haven't seen collect and earn be used as much. We're kind of looking into those two very distinct differences in the way people approach their engagement with RTLOL, and making sure we structure in some rewards that tie into the motivations there appropriately.
Sweet.
And I guess more importantly than that as well, making sure that those rewards are built in a way that is not inflationary. We don't want to build the next SLP. I think we can all agree that system wasn't it was great, but wasn't sustainable. And yeah, like every system we build, we're building with the idea of how can we do this for the next 10 years. So yeah, hope you all enjoy the game because it's going to be around for a while.
Excellent. Myson has asked, any update around the heroes? Are they going to be in the next drop or maybe a bit later on?
Yeah, so the heroes, we've got all of the artwork for them ready to go. Since that definitely not going to be the Arthron drop, but they potentially will be tied into the second edition drop. We still have a bit of time to work out how we best want to structure that. I think if we can link them together as we've always, planned and hoped for, then yeah, that's going to be the best outcome. But yeah, you'll have to stay tuned. We'll come back to you on that one, on how that's going to look in reality.
Sure, sounds good. Reginald Ledoux has asked a question. Just says, how long after the Epic Store launch will the other Lords of Light games launch? I mean, you probably can't answer that at the moment, but Arena and Quests he's got in brackets.
Nice profile picture, Reginald. Very, very beautiful. Yeah, so
I don't want to give Reginald one of my business cards now to see if he likes the
yeah, exactly
likes the color.
Yeah. I think it really depends on when they're ready to go. We're not really gonna commit to a firm time frame on future game title launches. We really want to be kind of like the Blizzard, but more blockchain friendly of Blizzard in its heyday, where sometimes it takes a while for the game to be released, but you always know it's a really good quality product that's getting launched. So yeah, I can't really commit to any timeframes there. But once we've got RTLOL launched, and it does take a little while post launch. It's not that you just launch it and then we're done and then move on to the next thing. Once we've got RTLOL post launch and in a really good space, then our primary focus is going to shift to the second title. We've already done a bunch of the early stage development towards it, but we need to pick up where we've left off and then tie it all together. So yeah, you'll have to stay tuned.
Okay. Slack has asked, is it possible to transfer cards from BSC to another BSC wallet already? Does OpenSea allow that now that it's picking up the Binance stuff?
They do, but JPEGs would be
JPEGs.
where I'd be. Yeah, JPEGs is how I do it personally. So JPEG supports both Avalanche and BSC. Our collections are on there and they are verified. So you can just search for those and they'll pop up. And once you're signed in with a wallet, if you scroll down on the right hand side, there's a bunch of little buttons there that give you all the sort of like trade, sell, like transfer, like all those little buttons are there to do that.
Yeah, you just have to check if you're using, say, OpenSea, that you're showing hidden cards or hidden collections, just because their new system flagging newer collections that have started with airdrops as hidden by default. And the final way to do it is you can do it through the contract interaction on BSC scan,
right.
but that's a bit more technical. So yeah, it's better to use
Safe
the nice
transfer?
safety way. Yeah, you just go to the contract and you can do the safe transfer. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that works well. And you can actually do it through the interface of the BSC marketplace as well but you just got to be very careful about making an offer on one wallet and then picking that offer up on the other wallet. But there's other people that have offers there, so it's dangerous a little bit. So you just got to be careful. Just saying that, I suppose, will Raini get rid of its marketplace over time then, considering there are other options?
Yeah, I think we're going to move away from our bridge offering and our marketplace offering. Our core focus and what we do best is game production, and I think there's something to be said for efficiency through specialization and effectiveness. It doesn't make sense for us to support these legacy systems when there are other much bigger organizations that are focusing all of their time, attention, and resources into making the best version of that product possible. It makes far more sense for us to just collaborate with them and then focus on what we do best, which is the game. So over time, I think we don't necessarily have any plan to remove the BSC marketplace in the short term. It might happen over the medium to long term, but we are not planning to invest any more resources into our own marketplace or our own bridges at this time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just weird to have to say legacy systems that are not even 2 years old.
Yeah, crypto, man. 2 years in crypto is like 10 years in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty well it. I can see from questions.
Just think of all the centralized exchanges that were still around 2 years ago that unfortunately aren't with us anymore today. So,
yeah, exactly. That's right.
Rip BlockFi. Anyway, yeah, is that all the?
That's all the questions I can see. Can I finish the game? It's got a little statement there. I'm not sure what that means. He had a story once, matter of fact. But yeah,
you can finish the game. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, cool. So yeah, a lot of stuff dropped there. Like I said, there'll be a medium coming out very, very shortly. That has everything we just spoke about there in a nice organized way, and I'll be throwing all that up on Twitter and everywhere else at the same time. But yeah, definitely stay tuned for next week's AMA, and then the following week we'll see what we can do about actually doing it live from the floor at 3XP, which should be pretty fun there as well.
Nice. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, Heaps.
Have a good day, everyone, and we'll catch you all next time.
Good to meet you, Ray. Have a good one, guys.
All right, see you guys. Cheers.
Betches.